As Sri Lanka struggles to recover from its worst economic crisis in decades, its people are leaving for better opportunities abroad. Government figures suggest some 122,000 people have left the country till May this year, the same number that left the country in all of 2021. Faced with rising prices and growing poverty, their reasons for leaving are quite evident.
Lentils and rice is all this couple can afford, and they often have to skip meals. Sri Lanka's chronic economic crisis has hit them hard. Retired accountant Milton Pereira says over the last year the situation has become more difficult.
Last year we had money, but no goods. Now there are goods, but we don't have money. This year the price of goods has increased significantly compared to last year.
Pereira's family lives in a working-class area of Colombo. They say life has become unaffordable. The government has removed subsidies on utilities, doubling their water and electricity bills. Pereira's home is also damp due to leaks from the water line. But municipal authorities have no funds left to fix it. Yet, the couple's biggest worry is expensive medicines. Pereira has chronic asthma, and public hospitals used to provide free medicines, but the government program has now been scrapped.
An inhaler costs around 2,500 rupees, so I didn't buy him one because we don't have enough money. We used to get medicines for free. Now, they tell us to buy it from the pharmacy. Only a small amount of medicines are available for free.
Last year, inflation, lack of basic necessities, and crippling international debts triggered nationwide protests. Former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa was forced to flee the country. He has since returned under tight security, but things have worsened in the meantime for ordinary people. Rajapaksa's successor Ranil Wickremesinghe is hoping to get the economy back on track with an IMF bailout worth $2.9 billion. The program imposes tough measures, increased taxes, removal of subsidies, all in all, more burden for citizens.
If we are comparing with 2022, April, May, at least there's availability of essential goods like fuel and electricity. But more importantly, if you look at the poverty numbers, it has we have added 4 million new people below the poverty line.
Government officials are pinning their hopes on the IMF program to end Sri Lanka's crisis in 2 to 4 years.
And joining me now for more from the Sri Lankan capital, Colombo, is human rights activist Ambika Satkunanathan. She's also currently chairperson of the independent grant-making organisation, the Neelam Tiruchelvam Trust. Ambika, a year on from the storming of the presidential palace, Gotabaya Rajapaksa is back in the country, prices of essentials remain high, and debt relief is a work in progress. What has Sri Lanka's people power revolution achieved?
Well, what it has achieved is that certain things are different and certain things still remain the same. So what we see different are we don't have the electricity cuts anymore. We don't have the fuel queues. There is the IMF package that has come, and it has been reported that inflation has come down. It's 12% generally, 4.1% where food items are concerned. So those are things that people could say, and they are saying illustrate stability. But at the same time, what we do see is that the government is pretty much the same that we had even during the people's struggle, the Aragalaya, and we have a different president, but it is the same members, which means you do still have the problems with governance, you do have corruption, and you have the government attempting to pass repressive laws like the anti-terrorism bill, like the broadcasting authority bill, which seemed tailored to stifle dissent, to stifle political activity and criticism criticism of the government and the massive security structure which exists. And they've said that they are going to, as part of downsizing, as part of this IMF restructuring, etc., that they do plan to downsize, or they call right size the military, but we don't see that in practice yet. And the surveillance arm, the harassment, I tweeted about it even yesterday, yet another incident where the military exercises powers that it does not have to try to monitor, surveil, and harass civilians and stifle dissent.
Let's just talk about the political part of things. Ranil Wickremesinghe, the current president, you make it sound like the government under him is much the same as it was under Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who was toppled last year.
Absolutely. It is very much the same. It is the same people from Gotabaya Rajapaksa's political party, because it was they who voted in parliament to elect Ranil Wickremesinghe as president, because he wasn't voted in by the public. According to the constitution, after the president resigned, he was voted in by Gotabaya Rajapaksa's party, which means he's still beholden to them. Just yesterday, last couple of days, again, we've seen news reports that they plan to give more perks, positions, and maybe ministerial portfolios to persons from Gotabaya's Rajapaksa's party. So pretty much, it's business as usual in some ways.
Gotabaya Rajapaksa was blamed for the economic crisis that Sri Lanka found itself in, and not just him, other members of his family who were also in government, including Mahinda Rajapaksa, his brother. Is there any sense of accountability? Does it appear that Gotabaya Rajapaksa and the government, the previous government at least officially, will be held to task?
Well, let me give you an example of it. There's a parliamentary select committee that has been established to look into the economic crisis, the causes of the economic crisis. And the persons who are members of this committee are all people mainly from the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, which is Gotabaya Rajapaksa's party. And we do see Nama Rajapaksa, the son of the former president Mahinda Rajapaksa, also increasingly coming into the public sphere. We see them trying to re-establish themselves, and enabled by President Ranil Wickremesinghe. So hence, accountability, I would say, is merely a pipe dream.
You know, I remember talking to you last year around the time that these protests were occurring, and I remember us discussing this mood amongst the protesters, at least, that there is perhaps a first real shot at some political change. From everything that we've talked about right now, it appears that that political change is way off. So that leads me to wonder if Sri Lanka at all is ready for political change.
I think Sri Lanka is definitely ready for political change, and what the people's struggle did, it made at least a certain section of the population a bit more politically aware. It made them realize that they have also civic duties, not just rights. It made them hold their elected representatives accountable. So we do have a slight awareness raising among certain parts of the population, particularly the young. And people are tired of this. They're very tired of it, exhausted actually, because of also the burdens that they're bearing due to the economic crisis. So they demand change. I think they do want change, even if they are not out on the roads, because they're exhausted merely trying to make ends meet. But everyone does want change, but we do not seem to have viable political alternatives.
We'll have to leave it there for the time being, but thank you so much for bringing us all that context. Ambika Satkuranathan joining us from Colombo, and also the chairperson of the independent grant-making organization, the Neelam Tiruchelvam Trust. Thanks so much, Ambika.
Thank you.
Now, besides the economic and political crisis, Sri Lanka is also dealing with a plastics problem. The convenience of single-use plastic is now proving deadly for the country's fauna. According to some estimates, at least 20 elephants, for instance, have died from ingesting plastic. But it doesn't just stop at them. Deer and other wild animals too are at risk. Now, the government is considering a ban on 7 types of single-use plastic. The hope is this will go some way towards preserving Sri Lanka's fauna.
These elephants are sadly not picky eaters. Over the past decade, Sri Lankan officials say around 20 elephants have died from eating plastic refuse. Those deaths have prompted the government to once again crack down on the country's plastic problem.
So you all know that Sri Lanka is one of highly polluted countries in the world. So we Sri Lankans use a lot of plastic items. If you look at the numbers, 20 million shopping bags are being used per day, and 10 million PET bottles are being used per day. Almost all items going to landfills.
A new ban on several single-use plastic items will soon go into effect, but previous laws have made little difference. Manufacturers have openly flouted a ban on plastic bags.
Of course, we raid them time and again, but of course, by raiding, we cannot solve the issue.
It's hard for many Sri Lankans to kick their plastic addiction. It's cheap and convenient, but also dangerous to animals and humans. Bags and bottles clog waterways and drains. Health authorities blame plastic waste for a surge in dengue fever, spread by mosquitoes who breed in stagnant water. But one company is working to get at least plastic bottles out of the waste stream. Eco Spindles recycles the bottles into plastic yarn, refashioned into clothing for top international brands, and the 2019 World Cup jersey for the Sri Lankan cricket team.
So actually 10 bottles are being used to make a t-shirt.
Environmentalists applaud the new plastic bans, but say cleaning up Sri Lanka's plastic mess remains largely futile unless the government gets serious about punishing those who break the rules.